It makes it so much easier when somebody's nice, right? I hope Matthew's nice. Let's bring Matthew in. Matthew, hold on. Oh, I can't get him. Hold on, he's in the queue somewhere. Tell me, tell me you're going to be nice, Matthew.
I'm nice. That was great. I enjoyed Lou.
Matthew Steinberg from Exhibit A Brewing. I'm going to open my Cat's Meow, which is one of my go-to
I
local
have one of
craft
those.
beers. Do you? Yeah, of course you do. I enjoyed
I love these.
the beer tasting last night. Thank you so much for you and your team for putting that on.
Oh, I want to be clear. I had nothing to do with that. That was all Kelsey, and he was great, right? He was really great last night.
He's so knowledgeable.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I would imagine like if I wanted a job at Exhibit A, I can't just get a job because I enjoy beer. You really have to be knowledgeable about not just the beer you're serving, but the history of every type of beer.
I mean, not when we started. Kelsey was the only one,
Oh, was
maybe
he? Yeah.
with me. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, now probably it's a good. It's a help. It's helpful.
Yeah. Um, so I do enjoy the Cat's Meow. I enjoy Just a Kitten, which we sampled last night.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that was
I
part of
still
the four pack last night.
yeah, I still have my empty cans down here. We
I
did
love.
Goody Two Shoes.
Nice. I love this label.
Well, tell me about the label. We learned about this last night, but tell people about the label.
So our 19-year-old drew this. I'm having a hard time holding it because it's a mirror, you know. So our 19-year-old daughter, who's in art school, I asked her to I've asked her to do a few labels for us, and she did Demo Tape 17 a couple of years ago, and she did Just a Kitten.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was a collaboration. You know, Kelsey does the design work, and she did the art. It was.
So what is and I know Kelsey mentioned this last night, but where does the whole idea of the kitten come from? Because you do have a few kitten related beers.
Well, the first thing I said when I started was I didn't want any like animal references or music references, you know. And then of course we have nothing but those things. We have rabbits, we have whatever. But the cat, we always thought it would be great to have a kitten beer with having Cat's Meow as our leader, the one that we make the most of.
Yeah.
It's fun to have a kind of a not. It's not that it's a variant. It's a very different beer, but it's like it's a little it's a little sister, little cousin, little brother.
Hair Razor's another one of my favorites. That's the double IPA.
Yeah.
Another animal.
Another animal.
We've got Tim Rice is watching right now, and I know you're a friend of Tim.
Hey, Tim.
He said we had no beers in fifth grade.
No, we didn't have any beers in fifth grade. No, or first grade for that matter.
So tell me about Exhibit A. You guys, I know you came along when you're in Framingham, right?
We are in Framingham.
Did you take over Jack's Abbey?
Yeah, and I didn't intend to build a brewery in Framingham. To be clear, I live in Western Mass and kind of near Amherst, between Amherst and Worcester.
Yep.
And we had planned to build a brewery out here for a long time, and then this just kind of happened. I went to visit Jack's with our crew from High Horse in Amherst, and I was like, "Wow, you're really a capacity here." He's like, "Yeah, we're planning on moving." I was like, "You should tell me when that happens. I'll buy all your equipment and install it somewhere." And then I decided not to move it. We kept it there and renovated the space and have a wonderful neighbor in Jack's down the street.
Yeah, they have a nice space as well now.
They do. They have a great space. I mean, I drank their beer building my brewery. That's how it works.
So do you taste not a lot, but do you taste their beer in your beer because you guys were so close at the start?
No, I don't. You mean like as far as like any influence?
Yeah, influence. Yeah.
I mean, no, not really, because I mean, I just have a total. I don't know. I think we tried to sort of be as different as we could. Obviously, we weren't going to step into making lagers. Yeah. And at the same time, I wanted to make Kolsch beer. I wanted to make Goody Two Shoes,
Yeah.
And we talked, actually, Jack and Sam and I had conversations about like, what kind of beers do you think you're going to make? Like, we'd like you not to make lager, and we did have an agreement about like kind of how I was going to approach launching our brewery.
Yeah.
And because it was important, they were excited about having a second brewery in town. You think about other neighborhoods that have more than one brewery. The people come, they go to all the breweries in the area.
Absolutely.
So
You're
it
not
was,
going to spend your
yeah,
whole night at one brewery. You are going. That's why Cape Cod has a brew bus, Cape Cod
right,
brew bus, because
sure.
there's 4 or 5 breweries that they just loop
You
around to.
complete the loop. Yeah, yeah. No, and it was a value to them to have a neighbor. And I think that we respected each other and knew that both of us were going to make great beer. You know, I was going to come in and make great beers and run a great company, and they were proud to, you know, kind of on some level offer that opportunity. Obviously,
Hmm.
I could have just built one somewhere, but it was nice kind of moving into a facility that already proved to be a great place to go and have a beer. You know,
Matthew, you're not only the owner, but you're the brewer or one of the
I mean,
brewers.
God, that changes every day.
Does it? Yeah.
I don't. I have not. I mean, I will get on the deck and make some work on occasion, but I'm really not making all this beer. I mean, it's a lot of beer for one person to make, for one.
Yeah.
But I have a crew of 3 amazing dudes and 3 amazing women that run that brewery,
Well,
and
even 3 and 3. Geez, that's a small crew compared
six
to
of us, 7 of us
what you put
total.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do participate every day in the production of our beer on some levels, whether I'm wrapping a pallet that just came off the canning line and putting it in the fridge, or yesterday I built a pallet rack. You know, I mean, like, and I paid some bills this morning. I
Fun
placed an
stuff, right?
order this afternoon. Like,
Whenever you get
I,
into a fun business, last thing you want to do is, oh, I got to go pay the bills.
yeah, yeah. Well, the end of month, you know, and so
Yeah.
it, it it's great that I'm not doing all of this. A lot of the physical labor these days. I'm getting too old for that kind of nonsense.
What was the inspiration for Exhibit A for the branding? Let's talk about the branding of Exhibit A.
Yeah, it was kind. I didn't come up with Exhibit A. My partner did, and it was just something that came out of his head, and the idea came from like being on display. He's like, you know, you kind of like being on display. You kind of like that presentation piece of what the beer gives you as part of my career of being like, you know, go to a beer fest, talk to a bunch of people about the beer. I love that stuff. Get on
Yeah.
the radio, talk to you, and that part is really, you know, I love that engaging part, right? And so I think that's where it came from for him.
Yeah.
But for us, it's the story was all about just being the presentation. Like, we are this thing that we make this liquid, right? And it's part of your experience. The enjoyment of the liquid, the taste is important, but it is about the experience, you know, and it's just being on display. So we and putting ourselves in that, you know, in front of you that way. We of course knew that having this name would kind of make people think about a law office, or are you guys lawyers? Like, who's the lawyer? I'm not a lawyer. I hired some lawyers. Um, I've had to hire some lawyers. But so these 2 beers, you know, Cat's Meow and Goody Two Shoes were the first. Now,
Okay.
there's not, I'm terrible at that. And immediately I thought about Innocence and Goody Two Shoes, and I thought that was fun. And the person that was doing the design for us originally came up with this Adamant idea, right?
Ah.
The song. And
Yeah.
so, and it was part of our musical input of what we have, part of our branding. There is some music influence, certainly with Demo Tape and some other beers we've done. But Goody Two Shoes was an Adamant, you know, kind of reference,
Hmm.
but it was more about innocence and about this kind of thought about Kolsch being like, in a sea of IPAs, it's like the most pleasurable beer because you know, it's just simple and clean and
Oh, it's so good.
kind of perfect. And that's Cat you're drinking, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we like that part of that, you know, and Kelsey ran with it. And as Kelsey Roth, who's our GM and designer and everything creative that we do that isn't liquid, he's basically, the way I describe what Kelsey does for us is that he does every single thing except make beer. Right. So he does compliance and
Yes.
entertainment and creative and marketing and everything. You know, he does all.
The Zoom things, and yeah.
He does the virtual tastings, and he's our
Yeah.
cicerone, you know, and he's a hugely valuable, awesome part of our team leader.
Speaking of influences, did I see, and I think I saw this on Facebook, a picture of a beer that was Bill Lumberg related from Office
Yeah,
Space?
yeah, yes. That,
Okay, tell me
and
about that beer, because as soon as I saw it, my first thought was he had to pay Gary Cole or Mike Judge a lot of money to get that on the can.
yeah, Mike Judge didn't get paid for that. I don't
No,
think. I don't know that Mike would mind. I feel like it's just
probably
a
not.
tribute. It's a tribute. You know, it
Yeah,
doesn't. It's not exactly him. I
I
mean,
didn't really look too closely to it, but what?
it's the only. It's the only beer we allowed ourselves to go to that. As far as the branding, like taking an idea from something and turning it into our own, right? Which is something we've tried to sort of avoid. Like I don't
Yeah,
have a lot. There's puns and references, but it's not like we're taking from an '80s TV show and turning it into something, or in this case, a current, an older, a 2000s
yeah,
TV show and turning it into something that's ours, which is not the intention. It's hilarious. I love that label.
absolutely.
So we're going to need you to come in on Saturday is the name of that beer. It's also the only beer we allowed it to be a sentence, which is another thing that a lot of
Oh
breweries
wow.
are doing. We decided, okay, so the name of the beer is actually a sentence, but it's real small. We're going to need you to come in on Saturday. So it's
Yeah.
Saturday Scotch Ale. It's a 8.4%.
Ooh.
Malty, beautiful, not overly sweet drinking Scotch ale. It's just like this, it's really nice, very English, traditional kind of influenced as far as the style is concerned. Really beautiful ingredients in that beer from Simpson's Malting in the UK.
Well, you talk
Um,
about a Scotch beer. Does that mean that somehow it's related to the whiskey?
no, it's just because of where it came from. In
Okay.
So in Scotland they made shilling, right? So they had all these, and Kelsey could tell you more about this, but the shillings were like 60 shilling, 80 shilling, 90 shilling, 120 shilling would be kind of like referring to the alcohol, the weight of the beer.
Yep.
They measure alcohol by weight, not by volume. So they would say by weight. And so and those were all Scottish ales. So the strong ones were like what I guess maybe American craft brewers started doing this like back in the 80s or 90s, and they made like Scottish ale, and then they had their Scotch ale, and that was like the 8 or 9% one. Um,
Okay.
I have aged those in barrels that held Scotch, which has been pretty cool. But yeah, no relation other than culture and location. But I don't know. I think, and also in England and in Scotland in those days, in Scotland didn't have access to many hops, so all their beers were very more sweet because the English were not letting them have hops, so,
Hmm.
or something like that. Don't quote me. Oh wait,
Which is something we've come to love about our craft beers is the
the
hops.
hops. I mean,
It's
yeah,
all about
yeah.
the hops. Oh,
It's
that's the name of a beer. It's probably taken, but it's
I'm
all about
sure
the
it's
hops.
taken. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
taken. Yeah. That's another thing that he mentioned last night, and it's so true. Is we'll be in there talking about names and like coming up with a name, and it's like not only has someone used it, like 14 breweries have used it, and then you're like, okay, well maybe it's not trademarked, but it still sort of should be. I don't know. We try to be gracious on that. I don't want to take someone's name
Yeah.
that may or may not feel uncomfortable about that. And we've even had to call other breweries, and we've gotten calls about certain names. So it's like that happens. I don't want to bring in a trademark attorney on a conversation with a friend.
Right.
But you may have to eventually, and we do protect our names. We have trademark on a lot of our stuff. So
I know you're in the stores around this area, of course, but how far
sure.
out do you go? We've got Joy watching right now, and Joy's out in Amherst, and she wants to know if she
Joy
can
can get
get.
our beers in Amherst.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there you go, Joy.
Go to the Spirit House. They just ordered, actually, they have some fresh beer. There's a bunch of stores in that area. I think even if she's downtown, that store right in downtown Brussels might have it. But yeah, we're also on draft sometimes when it was, when draft beer was happening all over the place in that area. And I live real close. I'm in Palmer, so we're not
Okay,
far. Um, but yeah, we're in like 800 retailers in Massachusetts,
that's
um,
great.
which is bizarre to me to even consider that. When we were self-distributing our first 2 years, we were in 250. So that was even like wow, like
Right.
crazy, But we do sell our beer in Maine, and that was sort of more of a personal choice. Our daughter goes to school in Maine, so it's like we can go to Maine. We got our beer there. We have friends there. So
Matthew, do you want to keep it local? Do you want to keep it small? Do you want to keep it craft, or do you
yeah,
see yourself going nationwide?
no, we will probably always remain under 10,000 barrels. I can say that now, and maybe in 5 years we'll be talking again, and we'll be at 25, and who knows? But
Yeah.
we right now, with just how everything is in our brewery and what it's built for now, to really be able to grow beyond, say, the 10,000 barrel mark, just logistically and financially, it doesn't make sense unless you dig in deeper and build like that $12 million brewery and make 40,000 barrels.
Right.
Because if you, or more, or maybe even, spend a little less, but still make that much or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's coming to a point in our volume where we made 6,000 barrels. We're built for basically 8 or 10, depending on how much more we want to push through the system and whether people want to work on Saturdays, which as the beer says, we're going to need to come in on Saturdays sometimes.
Yeah.
I try not to.
Sure. Is it as much fun as it seems to own a brewery, work at a brewery? It's not okay. There's a misconception there, right?
What's fun about it is that I could have any job, but I chose this one. So it's only fun for me in the sense, and the word fun may not be the right word, but it's only appropriate for me because I fell in love with it then.
Yeah.
This is my 22nd year. I don't know how old. Ask Tim how old he is. I think we're about the same age.
He's a little bit younger than me, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I've been doing this 22 years.
You're doing what you love.
Yeah. When I decided to not be in the tire business, because that's what my dad does, and that was the move. Take over dad's business. Would have been probably financially pretty smart. Then for sure.
Mine would have been accounting. Instead, I got into radio. My dad handled the town of Spencer. Like everybody in Spencer was a client of my dad.
Not far from
and I probably could have lived a different life, financially sound, but I chose radio.
Well, my brother's in radio. And,
is he?
Yeah. He worked at BCN. That's where we met. And I totally remember meeting you and that you told me you had a radio show and all of that. Yeah.
We were at Charles Lacquadera's thing.
Yeah, and Charles is awesome. But so yeah, my brother worked for BCN for years and then went on to radio in New York, and COVID laid off.
Oh wow! Oh, that stinks. Just recently, huh?
Yeah.
And that must have been scary for you too. How did you weather the storm?
We are so lucky. We kind of were at, and I say we, and I don't mean my industry. I mean, I have friends that are up. I have friends that are down. Obviously every bar owner I know is just, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
For so many, and some it's not as bad of a disaster, I guess. But for us we were set up for about a 35% growth this year in 2020.
Yeah.
And that was going to be like really hard to do, but we were, tank wise, for capacity, canning line, all that stuff was ready. We're ready. And we managed to miraculously have a little bit of volume growth this year. We brewed a little more beer than we did last year in 19. In 2020, we brewed just a bit more. Of course, it was all cans, no draft. So that we don't need to get into the cost in that part, but it doesn't really work, right? And so, because it's just so expensive to put beer in cans, and if you don't have enough draft, you lose some of that margin control. And so we are fine. We're stable. It's exciting because we managed to make it through, and I got to see people showing up to work every day. That was incredible. Not having to send them home.
Yeah.
And we had some furloughs, but it was they furloughed. We had certainly a bunch of people that had to leave for some COVID scares. No, luckily we've been safe and everybody's been healthy.
Yeah.
We've had a few. One of my people, a family member got it, so he had to, he had to quarantine. So that challenge that everybody is in on, we've been so lucky, and
that's awesome.
Obviously, very thankful.
Well, we've been supporting you. I've got a circle of friends. I've got many friends that enjoy your beer, but my circle of friends, we all pass around the beer and we love it. And I think the consensus is the Cat's Meow is our favorite. And then if you want something a little bit heavier to put you to sleep, the Hair is at least my go-to when it's time for bed. And I need one more. This one will put me out.
Have you had? Yeah, and you drank whiskey with Lou earlier, so
yeah, I did, and I'm feeling it.
I bet. Yeah, I didn't realize he was on until I popped on, and I was like, "Oh, that's amazing! I love that."
Oh yeah, we talked to him years ago, and Tim, myself, and our friend Jay did a driving thing, sort of like what Jay, I mean not Jay, Seinfeld did driving in
yeah,
cars. You know,
yeah.
he stole the idea from us. Anyway, we would do that. We interviewed people, and Lou was one of the guys we interviewed.
That's
So
cool.
I've been in touch with him over the years, and he's a great guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to send him some beer. Actually, maybe I'll do that. He's in LA. I'll send him some of your beer.
He's from here though, isn't he?
He's not from here. He's from New Orleans, but he did spend a lot of time here. He played in the Cape League of baseball.
Oh, right.
He was a baseball player. So, hey Matthew, thanks so much, man.
I appreciate it.
And
we have some fresh wandering thoughts coming up. It's instead of hair razor, we every once in a while we'll toss in a batch of that.
Yeah.
And we drank that, like you were saying, like, how often are you drinking?
Yeah.
We do sensory every day. And so we all agreed, like, wow, this is the best batch of wandering thoughts we've made. That hits the cans on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we, go.
And I encourage people to go to the website and get more details about virtual tastings. I know you have them coming up with pastries or cookies.
Right? Yeah, cookies. Yeah,
so we're looking forward to that.
And so good at it and entertaining, and he's authentic. What he's bringing is he cares so much about it. It's amazing.
Well, it's fresh, it's delicious, and we love it here. So Matthew, thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take it easy, Ray.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Peace.
Matthew Steinberg from Exhibit A. Again, the Cat's Meow, my favorite that I'm drinking right now. I do, what else? I do love the Just a Kitten. If I want something a little bit lighter, and then if I want something a little bit heavier, I'll go with the hair razor.